Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Stark Contrast.
Boom, 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 boom.
If you listened to episode 2 last week, we just want to say thank you. Dai and I appreciate all the continued support we get on here. Dai, how many patrons do we have right now?
We have 11 patrons right now. So, yeah, I mean, like, not to echo too hard on what Geoffrey just said, but if you're joining us here for the first time, welcome. If you've been following along, welcome back. Episode 3, Stark Contrast. For the new listeners, we invite you to backtrack and listen to episode 1, which was none other than
Iron Man, Tony Stark himself.
Indeedy. And then episode 2 was Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man. So, so we have new patrons this
we do,
episode.
Yes.
Which, you know, like for Geoffrey and I, it's just kind of mind-boggling because, again, we didn't expect to have one patron, let alone 11.
Still blows my mind.
Yeah, 3 episodes deep. So just want to start the show with a thanks to Claire, who I believe is from the UK. And Ian What? I don't know if he wants me to use his real name. So Ian What? On Patreon for backing the show. We appreciate you. We appreciate the support and hope you love this episode. It's also worth noting that we've broken some barriers. So like I just mentioned, we not only have UK listeners, but we also have listeners in New Zealand.
No way.
We do, on top of the US. So that's pretty
That's
awesome.
amazing. I love New Zealand. Never been, but I love the culture there.
We love Kiwi.
Thank you guys so much. Like all this continued support means everything to us. We just, like we've said at the top of our episode in episode 1, like we're just 2 nerds just nerding out, having just genuine, interesting, fun conversations about these MCU characters that we love so much on screen, and we just love taking like a deeper dive into their actual character story, like in the comics, and then how it resembles on screen.
Yeah.
So with that, let's get into episode 3. And you want to set it up? You want to?
Well, before we go there, I just wanted to say that, you know, like with all of the news that's coming out lately, Loki stuff is coming out, Black Widow stuff is coming out, all of this good stuff. Geoffrey and I tried to talk about it on the previous episode, and we derailed so hard that we thought it took away from the character studies. So if you're looking for updates and reactions, YouTube is great for that. It's not from us, but it's from people who do it very well, and we admire them. And so unfortunately, we won't be recapping stuff, but we are capping one thing today.
That is true. And through a poll that we did across all of our social channels, through our Patreon, through Twitter, through Instagram, we asked you, the listeners, which character should we discuss next? And I believe it was between Hawkeye, Daredevil, Scarlet Witch, and Captain America.
Yep.
And who else you thought that would have won it? Dai?
Unanimously, Captain America took the poll. So, I for starters, I'm very surprised. I thought Scarlet Witch, given how relevant she is right now, she was going to take it, and this is on the heels of the MTV Movie Awards?
Yes, that just happened, I think 2 days ago,
Yeah, so congrats to Elizabeth Olsen and the cast on all of their wins. But yeah, I thought for sure Wanda had it. But the final tally, if you want to hear, is in last place, Hawkeye with 15 whole votes, which is like, that's fine. I get it.
Yeah.
Clint Barton, he's an acquired taste. I am part of that weird niche of people that love Clint Barton, so that's a little sad on my part, but it's okay. I can dismiss it. Scarlet Witch in second place, or second to last place with 19 votes. And narrowly beating Wanda to second place overall was Daredevil, who I didn't see coming out from behind like that quickly. You know, he was in third place overall at first, and he just came up and he overrode, you know, Wanda. And so
it's got to be a Charlie Cox thing.
It's a
I think it is. Like,
but can you blame anybody,
I can't.
Geoffrey?
Thank
you.
One of my favorite renditions.
Oh, he's incredible. and of course, you know, Captain America #1, almost 30 votes for him alone. So he kind of swept. So that's who we'll be covering today for this episode, and I got to tell you, it is a deep dive. You know,
I am very excited.
Yeah, I thought Tony was going to be tough, but Cap is so.
This one is, yeah.
He's got such a rich background that there's no way we're going to be able to do it remote justice. So as you know, I always say, again, Geoffrey and I are not experts. We're not claiming to be experts in all things comic books and movies. You know, we're just having our discussions and hope that people listening enjoy that and also feel enlightened at the end of the episode, should you make it that far. Mm-hmm. So with that said, let's dive into Captain America.
Let's start it off. I'm very excited because all I can imagine in my head is just literally Chris Evans, and
Yeah, I mean, but at this point, how could you not? You know, we talked about this in episode 1 with Iron Man and how it's over a decade worth of storytelling.
Yep, exactly.
On screen. So it's at this point, you know, if you've stuck to the films even halfway, you know, Chris Evans is like the visual embodiment, if not entire embodiment, of Steve Rogers.
Agree.
And I gotta say, I mean, I feel like just choosing Captain America in general was a tough one, because then it turns into which Captain America.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna get into it a little deeper later, but Steve Rogers is obviously not the only Captain America, as we now know, with Falcon and Winter Soldier.
It's true.
So yeah, how should we start this? Should I do the old trading cards?
Let's start with just a straight like comic bio of Steve Rogers or Captain America.
Captain America. So as always, you know, I've got a you know, a few cards here from my collection. 1992 Marvel Masterpieces, 1992 Marvel Universe, 93 Masterpieces, and then I'll be reading one from the 1992 Impel Marvel superhero set. So here we go. 1941. Scrawny would-be soldier Steve Rogers tried to sign up for military service, but was promptly pronounced 4F, physically unfit to serve. Dejected, he headed for the door just as opportunity knocked. Army scientists accepted the spindly specimen for an especially secret experiment. After ingesting the super soldier serum, say that 3 times fast.
I know.
Rogers' bony body was bombarded with bizarre vita rays, and his formerly minuscule muscles began to bulge with brawny might. This miraculous metamorphosis, combined with rigorous training and inborn courageousness, have made this ageless Avenger the ultimate freedom fighter, Captain America. So
that's literally like the intro to Captain America, the first Avenger.
Is it not? Right?
Like, it's literally like word for word, like how it was on the screen. Yeah,
and mentally picture
the 4F,
the montage of visuals
the doctor
MCU
coming into the like I was just like
right down to the stamp. Like when I said it, I heard the stamp on the folder. You know, like
I heard him going into the machine with the vita ray. Yeah, that's literally the first like 20 minutes of the first Captain America movie.
Yeah, I agree. And so it was interesting, you know, revisiting my recon on the character, because personally speaking, it's hard to find differences. It's hard to find a contrast that was like really offbeat between how he's presented on screen versus
comic
books, you know. And so, of course, let's start with the very, very beginning. His appearance was Captain America Comics #1, March 1941.
That was the date of that when that issue came out.
When that issue came out, and you know, given the timing, it was actually the same year as Pearl Harbor, but before that all went down. So you can imagine how relevant that story became. later that year because of all of the the chaos that was happening.
Yeah.
History was just
Interesting.
changing very rapidly. Of course, created by Joe Simon and King Kirby himself, Jack Kirby.
Nice.
Always good to shout out Mr. Kirby there. This particular comic is a little different when it comes to its sister brother books, in that it was published under Timely Comics, which is, if you will, the original Marvel Comics.
Oh, before it was
was Marvel Comics. And so it actually, the publication went through 2 iterations of companies before it hit Marvel. So it was Timely Comics, and then it was Atlas Comics.
Okay.
And it was originally created by this pulp magazine publisher, Martin Goodman. It took a good 20 years until it reached and became Marvel Comics.
Whoa.
So Marvel
interesting.
Comics didn't come to be until the 60s. And so, like Captain America, he started out on this other publication, and it was essentially in the golden age of comics. Are you familiar with the different ages at all?
I'm not.
So
Please enlighten me.
So I am personally a Silver Age collector, which is kind of like late 50s, 60s onward.
Okay.
And so John Romita is a big one for me. He did an incredible amount of Marvel material, especially Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
And so that's where I come from. And the books are a little cheaper.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Golden Age is late 30s to mid 50s. And it was just another era. It was really like the jumping point of a lot of these superheroes. And so when I was going through Cap's first appearance in that first issue, there's a little... The cats are going crazy right now. I'm so sorry. They're just at this point, the cats are very used to Geoffrey being here, so they're just all over the place and like in his face and eating and stuff. So we might cut that out, but we'll see.
It's okay.
And so I was going through the recap issue of Captain America's first appearance, and within its pages, there was what I imagined intangibility is a page where it's like half comic and then half advertisement. And so this is way before your time, way before my time even, but I don't even know if you're aware of these things, but it was kind of like when you had like a box of cereal and you cut the thing out and you mail it in with like $1.99 and you get something back.
Yeah.
So in Captain America Comics #1, there's this little excerpt that for 10 cents, if you mailed in that piece of the comic book, you could get a Sentinels of Liberty badge with Captain America on it and become one of the team.
One of the people, yeah.
And so I can't even imagine how many people had that comic book and cut that page out, considering how much it's worth now. Because it's...
like a first edition.
Like if such a thing even exists anymore,
Yeah.
But... Before we even get to and that's something I have noted here actually. But before I get to that, I have a quick story with a local comic book shop. It's called McFly's Comics in Huntington Beach, and this amazing caretaker whose collection he actually sells himself. His name is Cal, and I remember when I first walked in there, it was kind of one of those things during pandemic. I was like, I'm just gonna go visit random comic shops. Let me just go check this out. And so this very inconspicuous shop. Down the road, I walked in and I was like, oh, this is interesting. He's got some like new stuff that you would find in like Hot Topic, like Funko Pops and toys. And then on the other side of the fence, he's got like boxes and boxes of old comic books, all of which he's selling. And so, I looked in his case just to see if there was anything that kind of, caught my eye. And he had this incredible, I think it was from 1950 or 60, and it was like a stamp collecting book, but it wasn't really stamped.
Okay.
And so he explains to me, because I was like, oh, how much is that?
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, maybe he's going to sell this thing. That's pretty cool. And he's like, it's not for sale, but I can show it to you. And I was like, cool. And so he gave me the show and tell of this incredible stamp book. And it essentially, apparently there was these issues of comic books with Black Panther, with Cap, with Thor, all of the main lineup. And there were these like stamp-like coupons in the comic books.
Okay.
That if you cut them out and collected them, you put them in the book.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And so, like, if you mailed in 10 cents or 25 cents, you got this pamphlet, and then you could collect stuff. And again, it's one of those things where you're just like, oh my gosh, imagine collecting these things. And then decades later, you're like, I used to have Captain America Comics #1, and I cut that coupon out.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Damn.
So I'm going to hit you with pop quiz.
Oh, the first one. Okay.
The first one. Okay? So on the heels of these golden age of comics, so take yourself back to 1941.
I'm there.
And then
I'm 100%
you think
there.
of the currency. So we're talking 10 cents for a badge from the Sentinels of Liberty, right?
Yeah.
And then you think about now. You know, Funko Pops are $9.99. Apple products are way more than that.
Inflation is
Inflation
crazy.
is nuts. So, you know, a previous comic book that was 10 cents before. Now they're kind of on $3.99, $4.99 up.
Yeah, like a $5. Yeah, sure.
That said, how much is Captain America Comics #1 worth in mint condition? And I have 4 choices for you.
Okay.
So this is a randomized. You pick which one you think is most likely. $915,000, $175,000, $2 million,
Wow.
or $5 million.
Whoa, those are very just not even close numbers to
No.
each other.
And again, remember, Captain America.
This is that one we were just talking about with the cutout coupons, or whatever. Yeah.
#1, first appearance, mint
First
condition.
ever, yeah.
Originally 10 cents. Let's have a stab at it.
Being that it's Cap, the first edition too, and just like the way that like Cap's value has grown so much in the past 10 years. So I mean, so the more movies Evans was in, I feel like that would
The
go
higher
up.
the stock.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah. So again, the choices are.
I know it's not the 200 one, 200 whatever thousand whatever was that?
175.
175. Yes.
Okay.
Not that one.
Okay. Too low.
I think that's too low.
Okay.
Given the nature of yes.
Yeah.
What was the last choice? The last choice, because
The last choice was 5 million.
5 million. So it's 5 to
5.2 and 915K.
I really do want to say the 900K, but I feel like that's jipping it because then there's the 2.5.
Like that might be fine.
Like it seems
that
like,
might be a fine, semi-fine.
like
condition.
it seems like realistic, but like not too like out of this world.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm leaning away from 5 million.
Yeah.
My gut says 2.5 million.
Geoffrey,
No.
2 million is the correct answer.
Oh, 2 million. Whatever. I thought it was 2.
You got it. You got
okay.
it.
Yeah. Oh.
No, 2 million.
Oh, that was 2.5.
No, you're good. Yeah, so the
Oh my God.
first issue of Captain America Comics, his first appearance all time, originally 10 cents, now worth $2 million in mint condition. And so
I have a follow-up question.
yes.
Is there someone in this world that has actually proved like that they have it
I honestly
and cashed it out or made it seem like
I'm sure, and in those kinds of instances, books go to auction if the person sells them. I mean, we've already mentioned him in both episodes already, but I'm pretty sure our friend Nick Cage, he's a huge collector.
Oh, really?
And he buys these kinds of books because he can afford them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I haven't checked eBay lately, but I honestly wouldn't doubt that there's a couple, at least, near mint or like I said before, fine, maybe a good, graded book.
Like now I just want to like go into the logistics of it,
Yeah.
like how
It's
many
incredible.
were made
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
like
And that's exactly what makes them worth more.
yeah,
Because
how many stood the test of time?
80 years.
40s, that's 80 years.
80
yeah.
years. So, you know, you have to think of the condition and, how it was taken care of. Did it come from a
Oh, yeah,
smoking
keeping-
home? Did
yeah.
it the water damage and the
Did you leave it in like the plastic wrapping all these years? Because
Exactly.
the yellowing.
Yeah, the
and
yellowing, because that's a
Like,
huge
how do you
thing
keep
too.
something like that on? And also, how do you predict something? You know that this is going to be
Exactly.
worth
Exactly.
like, going from 10 cents to 2 million.
What
yes.
happened to Beanie Babies? What
I know.
happened to Furbies?
Exactly.
Like, you know, you just never know.
That
Trolls.
is
Yeah, and so
wild to me.
It's just pretty intense, and so like I certainly don't have any books that are worth that much. I would love to have one, but I have a couple of graded comics. I think I showed you before, and you know the one that's worth the most in my collection is probably Amazing Spider-Man number 50, where he decides he doesn't want to be. Is it the one? Yeah, and where he just doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just because like I remember like during the pandemic, a lot of people are getting into like trading cards for
Yeah.
like athletes and stuff, and then comic books go into that same conversation because
Exactly.
like you don't know what. Also, you can find like the most like the rarest comic book at like a random comic store, and you're like, oh, I wonder how much this is, and it's just
Yeah.
like, oh wow.
Exactly. And then, you know, of course, we have a more modernized scenario where a movie or something happens and then it immediately inflates the value of a
Yeah.
book. And so, like, you know, for my own enjoyment, I searched like Bucky Barnes, for instance, because I wasn't sure if I had actually correct myself. I wasn't sure if I had the Winter Soldier's first appearance, and I do, but I don't. I have his first cameo, so it's not the same thing as actual.
Like an
appearance.
actual like where okay.
Yeah, and so like that book, for instance, because of Falcon and Winter Soldier, because of the movies, have gone up considerably in value. To the point where, you know, at the time it was $5, but now on a good day, it's a
gone
good
up.
150, 200.
That's crazy.
For a modern character, it's a lot of
Yeah.
money, you know? But I'm sure like Bucky Barnes, I mean, he's in Captain America #1, so he's technically worth $2 million.
It's true. Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on about that stuff.
Sure.
You know, and there's a whole grading system, and if you're getting it
Yes.
signed, you have to have a witness and all this stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, depending on how serious a collector is, I'm sure there's at least a handful of people out there who own that issue in that condition, which is like, whew.
Just wonder, I mean, even if like there was like, I don't know, like some defects to it, still might be worth a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I think the cheapest, I mean, I'm sure if the integrity of the cover is absolutely like messed up beyond belief, like if it's torn, but you can still see it says Captain America and see most of the cover.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt that it's at least worth a couple of grand because of who and what it is, which is like it's incredible.
It's crazy,
right?
man.
Yeah.
There's definitely there has to be someone
Yeah.
in the world like just collecting these.
Yeah.
Like,
And you got to keep them like in a safe spot and the light
in like
and
a
the
temperature,
air.
in a cool area,
Yeah.
in like a sleeve,
They
not even
sell
a sleeve.
those.
It's like the silicone, whatever it is,
Yeah.
like the plastic almost stuff. I don't know, but yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, like with these older books and especially Golden Age, because they're just so invaluable that it's just like yikes. You know,
so
like,
wild.
it's a dream to have one.
I know, right? Like
I
if
would
you can
love
even,
to
I
have
would just
one.
want to see one in person at this point
and,
because like,
and that's why you got to come to a convention.
oh, okay.
The dealers in the showroom, they have these issues like just sitting there. You can look at it. You can hold it if you ask real nice. You know.
Put some white gloves on.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, so it's not impossible to be in the presence of them, but to own them is like another thing.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Next to impossible.
Yeah. So let's take it back. What is the earliest memory you have of Cap?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can't even say the game. I mean, we always go back to the
We always go back to the Marvel, vs.
Capcom
and-
games,
yeah.
but I think it definitely has to be, you know, obviously the first Avenger, because that came out. It came out 2000.
Captain America.
2011, I believe.
Yes, nailed it.
Yes.
Directed by Joe Johnston.
Oh, I don't even know who that is. I don't even know who that is.
Oh, yeah, Joe Johnston did the first one. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So not even the games. It was just kind of like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I said this back in the Iron Man episode. I think just like when I got introduced to like just the MCU in general, it was I was watching whatever was like at the time, and then I was like, as I saw more, then I was like, oh, now I'm invested because I'm pretty sure Iron Man 2 was like one of the first.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay, what is this? What's going on?
Yeah.
Or at the end and it was like, at the end of the first Iron Man, it was like when Nick Fury came, it was like,
yeah,
I'm talking about the Avenger Initiative.
That's when I knew that was real. When it was getting real.
Really, yeah. I mean, and at the time, like no one's thinking like, no way, like Marvel, like a franchise can do this, a studio can do this, like an interconnecting movie franchise in the same universe, whatever. Mm-hmm. But before I get off track, so Captain America: First Avenger.
It was so ambitious too, like nobody could have predicted.
Let's I think so.
Well,
yeah, so like I said,
unless you're Kevin Feige.
Yeah, so it was First Avenger, I think for sure. And then I guess let's talk about Chris Evans.
Okay, is it weird for me to say I don't remember the first time I ever heard about Captain America? I almost feel like I was just imbued with like the knowledge out of the womb.
100%.
Because I have no recollection. I just knew who he was. Like as a kid, like he was Captain America, I couldn't tell you. I honestly couldn't tell you.
Yeah. So then yeah. I mean, obviously at the time, this is 2011. Mm-hmm. I am a junior in high school.
10 years
I'm a junior
ago.
in high school at this time.
You're a baby.
Yeah. So I didn't really keep up with like social media like I do now. Like there was no like, I'm going on Twitter to like, oh, like who they announced this person as Captain. They announced this person as so I kind of, it's just like so like when I think of Chris Evans, two movies come to mind.
Okay.
First one being obviously Fantastic Four. Right?
Yes.
He's
Which I feel people almost forget sometimes.
really.
Like, I honestly, I do, because I think that for casual moviegoers who aren't really comic book people, didn't bother with Fantastic Four
At the time,
that time.
yeah.
No, I mean, some people forgot that it even happened, let alone saw it, And so
It's my favorite iteration of the Fantastic Four.
honestly, yeah, no, same. I was really into it, like really, really into it.
It's also because I have a huge crush on Jessica Alba, but that's another story.
I was waiting for that.
But Chris Evans, I thought he played Johnny Storm.
Johnny Storm, he was
pretty
fantastic,
well.
yeah.
And then the second movie that I didn't realize it was in, but I was like, oh my god, it is not another teen movie.
Oh, I was gonna say Scott Pilgrim, but
Yes.
no, not another teen movie. Oh
Not another teen movie,
God,
because
that's so funny.
I grew up watching that movie as a kid. Obviously, I shouldn't have, because
Not
I was
for
definitely
you.
not that age.
Yeah.
But it was just so like, the early 2000s slapstick comedy, high
Right.
school, like it was amazing. And him like in that was just hilarious.
Yeah. And see, it's funny that you say that, because based off of those films and based off of the impression that he kind of instilled in me as a moviegoer throughout the 90s and 2000s, when they announced him as Captain America, I was like, what? What? Chris Evans?
Like who? Yeah,
Chris Evans?
like him as a guy in not another teen movie, or the guy who played Johnny Storm,
He's
or
the hot guy that's really funny and
heartthrob, teen heartthrob.
yeah,
Yes,
a little sarcastic to the point where you're like, you know what? I'm still into it. And so when they announced him as Captain America, I was like, hold on. You're telling me Chris Evans is gonna be a walking American flag of a superhero? Mm-hmm. And I almost couldn't believe it. But he sure proved me wrong, because holy Toledo.
which takes me back to a post I just saw literally a couple days ago or a week ago. Chris Hemsworth, I don't know if you saw this. Chris Hemsworth posted like a headline of like the anniversary of the first Thor.
Yeah, with the picture
with
of
him
and
Tom Hiddleston, and they're like, and the headline was Marvel cast 2 unknown actors to be their leads for their upcoming movie in Thor.
Insane.
And I'm like, wow, now they're household names.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, that's Thor and Loki.
Hemsworth is what, second best Chris? He's, I think, on the tier of Chris's, he's the second best. So I mean, imagine that. And so the transformation of these actors and characters is just kind of perpetually mind-blowing, because again, who knew? And he embodies Cap so well.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes back to a testament to the casting and Marvel just believing in these people.
Yeah.
But then circle back to the first Avenger.
Yeah.
knocked it out the park. Like the character, the attitude of Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in the first 20 minutes, right up until he gets the
like Skinny Steve. Oh,
yeah,
how do you not like Skinny Steve?
Up until he gets the serum, like there's all this character establishment where you're just like, this is incredible. This is it. Like, this is their guy.
And again, he's the guy on the back of these trading cards. Like he's that guy. Yeah. You know, you hear his journey in a paragraph, and then you see it brought to life on the screen in 2 hours, and it's all, you know. Of course, it takes an army, but literal army in his case. Yeah. But you know, it's a lot in part due to the fact that Chris Evans gave such a performance that he transformed himself, you know, in many ways. And I'd like to think that Cap has affected him personally as a human being too, because you know, you see the kind of work he's doing now, and having these open dialogue discussions between, you know, not to get too political, but between political parties and just trying to make sure that people are
just doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's, to me, that's a lot of what Cap is. He's just doing the right thing.
100%. I agree. Yeah. Going back to I was rewatching the first Avenger the other day, and while Dai was rewatching the movies, I was also rewatching, and we were texting each other, and the embodiment of Captain America was when the doctor approached Steve right before he had his procedure, and he's saying like, you are to not remain a perfect soldier but a good man, and that's just like the embodiment of Captain America. And then you see that, and you see Chris Evans portray that for the next 10 years, which is up until Endgame.
And it's absolutely incredible, because, you know, I feel like that line in particular is just so important to the idea of a superhero, you know, because, you know, you have to remember Captain America came about 2 to 3 years after Superman. Okay. So you have this incredible embodiment of a superhero. You know, Superman, he can do no wrong, laser eyes, super strong, he can fly, and he's a good guy. You know?
Invincible, basically.
Absolutely invincible and perfect in every way. And so then, you know, here comes Timely with this guy who gets a super serum, and it's not necessarily to make him a reflection of Superman, but to be a strong and powerful good man. Yeah. So it's interesting that they wanted to keep the humanity of Steve Rogers,
because it's also it'll resonate with a lot of just regular average people who are like, this guy's just a good person.
Yeah, and I think that's what Marvel's been really strong with when it comes to their characters and their character development, you know, off and on the screen, is that they fully intend on having you invest in the humanity of their characters and their superheroes.
Like they keep their characters very, very grounded.
Right. Yeah. And it's incredible. And so, you know, like Geoffrey mentioned, we were simultaneously watching Captain America movies, but not the same Captain America movie at the same time. And so while he was watching First Avenger, I was watching both Winter Soldier immediately followed by Civil War, which I definitely didn't intend to do. Like, I was just kind of like, I'm going to put Winter Soldier on in the background, and I'm going to do my write up my stuff for the podcast. And next thing I know, I'm sitting there for 6 hours. I was like, whoops. But you know, it was nice though to kind of reflect on how far that character has come, and how similar he is to the one in the books. And you know, for Winter Soldier in particular, like, I was revisiting the 2005 issues of Captain America, penned by the incredible Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker is like the man of modern times when it comes to Captain America. Okay. And so his stories are very, he really gets Steve. He really writes Steve's story the way that it should be read and written. And, you know, it was originally, the writer in the first wave of comics I was reading was drawn by Steve Epting. And the way that they embodied Cap is very similar. And, you know, like now, and I think I mentioned this in comparison to like X-Men, for instance, and the voice actors and how you hear the sounds now. Like, when I read a comic book, I hear the sounds, and I kind of, and so when I was going back to Cap, like now it's so incredible because you know that they completely referenced these comic books. You know for a fact they reference these comic books not only for the source material but also for the panels, also for the photo direction and how they're framing scenes. And so now I'm going back to Cap and I'm here, I'm seeing this shield go by. I hear the
like the whoosh,
and the dings and the all of the way that he catches it. And it's awesome. And so like I feel like Ed Brubaker's series in particular really like, oh man, he just like had a hold on it so tight, and you can see it reflected in those films to the point where some of the panels and some of the dialogue are stripped from his books. So like the infamous "Who the hell is Bucky?" That's
directly
straight up pulled from, I think it was Captain America #7. When Bucky like full on comes back as the Winter Soldier, and the scene is a little different. It's of course it's a different scenario, but even the structure of the scene is very similar in that they're squaring off one-on-one, and Steve's like, what the hell?
Who is this guy?
Who is this guy? And then the mask and all that stuff, and he's like, who the hell's Bucky? And I was like, dang! That's
amazing.
Yeah,
wow.
And so people don't realize that it's more than just Sebastian Stan's beautiful face on the screen.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, and so, again, like all the props in the world to Ed Brubaker, because he's really like, that's if you're going to get into Captain America, like now, anything with Ed Brubaker's name on it, get that.
Did he do the Civil War?
He panel? Did not.
Because I think of the Iron Man, Captain America shield panel.
Yeah.
They ripped straight from the comics in the movie.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that because I made note on here. But the first Civil War, there are two. And so the first Civil War was written by, I believe, Brian Michael Bendis, who's also tremendous in the industry. And so that was a 7 or 9 issue series. Don't quote me on that. That was, and there's that infamous scene near the end of the film where it's Cap versus Iron Man, and the rate even slows down.
Yeah,
when he's got his shield up against the plasma blasters.
Yeah, it's like a perfect splash page.
Yeah, it's incredible, and that's actually the cover of of book 7. Book 7.
Okay, yeah.
And so that again, they're ripping it right off the page and putting it on the screen, and so it's Easter eggs like that I'm just like, yeah. They did it.
It's
they did
good.
It for the
fans.
I love
it. I love seeing when after I watch a movie and then you go on Twitter or whatever, you do I always do my research for some reason after I watch a movie.
Yeah.
And so when I see a scene that's just ripped straight from a splash page or something, I'm like, that's cool.
And that's a direct iteration of Civil War. Mm-hmm. And so in hindsight, a lot of people, speaking of Civil War, not to jump around too much, but we're actually kind of covering all three in a row, which is nice.
We are.
Civil War in particular, there's a huge debate about how much it differed from the comic book version, which I totally understand. I'm
sure in the comic books there was a lot of more heroes involved,
the stark contrast of that is that the X-Men were involved.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense, yeah.
And so that was kind of the height of, at that time, why doesn't Disney just buy Fox? Why don't they just put them in? And, people
They called your bluff and they did it.
They did it anyway! If we just waited a couple of years. But yeah, so the X-Men are a huge part of that. And it's funny because they're more or less indifferent in a weird way. They're, it's like in the film where, it's Cap squaring off against Iron Man. There's an accord, except in the comic, it's the... something about the Superhuman Registration Act, I want to say.
Yes, I have heard about this briefly. Yes.
Yeah, and so the Superhuman Registration Act is basically their accords, Sokovia Accords. And so, of course, you remember, this is after Age of Ultron in the MCU, so the super-powered... What did they call them?
Enhanced?
The enhanced, people, they need to get them regulated. They want them to register and same scenario. And so the X-Men were just like, we're going to let you all figure that out. We're not doing it. And they just kind of slowly back into the hedges like Homer Simpson. And so they had that going on for them. And
they're fighting. I've never seen them play this much.
They love you.
Sick.
Just put elevator music. All right, so we're back. And so you've that whole Team Cap, Team Iron Man thing is very consistent with the book version of that. But yeah, the big thing missing was the X-Men, and also kind of like the sub story of Peter Parker. He reveals himself in Civil War book and the comic book.
Oh.
Yeah, and so like as a support for Tony, he's like, all right, sure, I'll be the spokesman, and he's like, look, I'm Spider-Man, and I'm also Peter Parker, and I support the Registration Act.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's a huge thing, and so. But the fact that we even got Peter Parker in that movie.
Yeah, that was the introduction.
Yeah.
Of Peter Parker.
It was gigantic, and so that was. I mean, otherwise, again. It's quite different, but also they've got a lot in common. It's got a lot in common, and of course the MCU version was very booky driven. Like you kind of watch it in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, this is Steve just like Bucky.
Yeah.
But also standing up for what he thought was right and how he just didn't believe in resigning their choices.
Which is a great way to see the differences between like the comics and the movies. It's because let's talk about Winter Soldier before you go back to Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was Cap's like intentions in Winter Soldier? It was, it was the Project Insight stopping that, and then obviously Hydra. But at the end of the day, it was like, I need to get my friend back.
Yeah.
He's in there and. Something needs to happen. I don't know what I need to do, but something needs to happen.
And also the underlying current of this is a man out of time. Man out of time is something you will hear throughout Captain America history. It's always been written in his books, literally. And so he's literally just trying to acclimate to the now and the internet and Marvin Gaye and
he's like, I don't know what's going on.
And so to then throw Bucky into the mix, who is essentially the one and only thing tethering him to his former life, it's a big deal. And so I get why it bled into additional films and why they have the friendship and relationship that they do. Both on screen and in the book. So it's kind of wild to see it from that angle, especially when it comes to Civil War, because man, he laid down the line for this guy, know. But it makes sense because they were partners from the get-go.
You don't forget who you grew up with, who was there for you even when you had nothing, even before the serum.
He had Bucky. It's so cute.
Even when I had nothing, I had Bucky.
I totally get it, and so that whole thing is just so pure to me.
And then Steve's character going from Winter Soldier to Civil War, about Project Insight, saying this isn't eliminating the competition. This is fear, holding a gun to everybody's head. That's just showing.
Dang, you almost quoted it to the T. Geoffrey's so good. Oh my god! And you did it. I don't know if you realized you did it. You did it in Spider-Man episode 2.
Oh, did I?
And I think you did it. I think you've done it all 3 episodes, to be frank.
I'm telling you,
it's incredible.
I have seen, like I said, there's a reason why I watched the first Avenger, rewatched it, because I've seen Winter Soldier and Civil War so many times.
So many times, yeah.
But then, so it's going from Steve being just a great man, being what is this, Nick? What are we doing? Holding a gun in everybody's head.
Yeah.
So just him trying to be a good man, do the right thing.
Yeah.
That leads into Civil War, where it gets to Team Cap and Team Iron Man.
Yeah.
I just want to say I am Team Cap.
Yes, no, that makes both of us. Yeah, it's Team Cap.
I am Team Cap.
Yeah.
I thought when at first I came out and I was just okay, what's the situation going on here? I thought I was Team Iron Man because obviously I loved Iron Man a little bit more.
Yeah.
But then after listening to why the Accords are a thing and why, and I'm just I don't know. You can't really.
And he kind of messed with me because Spidey was on his team, so I was I should be Team Iron Man.
And then you realize you're
no,
he's literally a kid. He's literally just doing what Iron Man. How are you gonna say no to Iron Man? Yeah, I'm on your team for sure.
Yeah. But what's funny is that in Civil War 2, which came in 2016, which was essentially 10 years after the first run. And
that
were
issue came out in 2016.
Like the second series came 10 years later.
It's so funny because the movie Civil War came out in 2016.
And that's exactly it. They tried to capitalize, which is a thing they do often now. Yeah, they do this. It's kind of funny when they start promoting certain books or they start messing with certain characters.
Issue.
You're like, what is coming out? Because that's usually why they do it. And so when Civil War came out in theaters, they released a parallel like series to kind of continue the first fight, so to speak.
Yeah.
But this time it was Iron Man versus Captain Marvel. And so, which is funny because Captain Marvel, who I believe was still Ms. Marvel in 2006, I'm not sure, she was on Tony's side. And so Cap has excused himself from this conversation.
Interesting.
And then it turns into Iron Man versus Captain Marvel, and there's this whole thing about an Inhuman. It's Inhumans this time, and I believe it was around the show. So they looped in Inhumans. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And so there's this Inhuman named Ulysses, and he could see the future. And so the debate that time was, we have the ability to see what's coming. Do we take it or not? And Iron Man was like, no. And Captain Marvel was like, absolutely.
Like, hello, you want to stop future threats.
Right. And that's pretty much what she said. And so the funny thing is that when it came to this one, I was Team Iron Man. I was like, no, why would you? Yeah, it's so interesting how they played it. It wasn't received nearly as well. But it was drawn by David Marquez, who I love, so that was enough for me. But yeah, so that would be interesting to see on screen. I don't want to see it, but it'd be interesting.
It would be interesting, but yeah, I do like the way they handle like this. It's also like I said, it's very grounded because it's like it's basically like yeah, the government oversee like superheroes, and you're like, that's kind of like how things are here in the real world. Like government is always trying to oversee something, but it's like, do they really need to though?
Yeah.
Like Iron Man, we need to be put in check. It's like you lost that choice of freedom when you signed the Accords.
Yeah. No, that line is so like hearing it again.
You lose your freedom to choose or something like that.
Yeah. And the way he articulated it too. Chris Evans has this way of articulating as Captain America, and I'm pretty sure he said like you lose your right to choose.
Yes.
Like he stressed
by signing that accord,
the choose, and I was like, dang.
Yeah, and I was just like, yeah, because I was going back and forth. I was like, do you want the government to oversee?
Yeah.
Superheroes that are beyond their like ability, like and what if there's like Cap said, like what if there's someone that we need to be but they don't let us? Oh my God, I can quote the whole movie. Oh my God.
It's incredible. No, but it's great. No,
so
it's exactly right.
Yeah, you're not gonna wait on something if someone's getting if like a whole country is getting taken over.
Yeah.
Are you just gonna wait for the president of the United States to be like, "Can we go?
Can we go?" Yeah, just like literally looking at their watches and being like, It's like Sonic when you just leave him idle. He's like tapping his foot and he's like,
what are we doing here?
We gotta go.
So like, I was just like, I kind of agree with Cap on this because it's like,
I agree.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of arguments that I've definitely seen, like, because then you go back to like Spider-Man Homecoming, where in the beginning it's like all this destruction is happening and you're like, who's gonna pay for all this stuff?
Exactly.
Like insurance, like is there Avengers insurance? Like I don't so I get that, but it's just like, if you need a threat, like if there's a threat that's like right now, it's cosmic, and there's no one else in the world that can stop that threat.
Yep.
Example, Thanos.
Tell me about it. Oh
who are you going to call? Not the Ghostbusters. You're definitely going to call the Avengers. So I have to be Team Cap on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a testament of how Widow flips, you know? Like, she had herself on the line, and she was just like, okay, well, I'm going to stop that, and you know what? I have to do it. I'm going to have to run for the rest of my days, but I'm just going to, you know, I don't believe in that sort of... that parameter around what they do is, and she says at the end, was it Winter Soldier or Civil War? But she was like, you know where I am. You can come arrest me.
You know where I am. You know where I'll be.
You know where
You know where I'll be. If you need me, you can find me.
He nailed it.
You're not gonna put me in jail. You're not gonna put us in a prison because you need us.
Let me get a red wig. Hold on.
Tell you. Oh my God.
Incredible.
Love it.
Incredible. So, you know, like that said, I mean, we could talk about, do you want to talk about the suit? Do you want to talk about the shield? Do you want to talk about the other Captain Americas? Which way do you want to go?
We'll start with the suits and then we can move on to the newer rendition of
Yeah.
Captain America, because I do want to talk
Yeah.
about Sam Wilson for
Yeah.
sure. I do like how the suits obviously
Evolve.
They evolve, but they're like, it's almost like it's more Easter eggy. It's evolving like with the times, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like when Infinity War came out, and I always watch those trailer breakdown videos, and I was like, oh, like it's Cap it was Cap in Wakanda, and it's like because he was Nomad at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like
Nomad Cap.
I know. And then like he had the suit, but like
Yeah.
under you saw like the scales, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay. And then I saw people like were saying like, oh, that's like that's like another costume that like I forget where it's from.
I mean, you can see it here.
Oh,
in,
yeah.
in
The
this,
scales,
in this
yeah.
artwork, you can see it's like that whole.
Oh, yeah.
What is it called again? I'm already forgetting what it's called, but you know, it's like wartimey. You
Yeah.
know, it calls back to his origins, really.
And then going into Endgame, it's just full on just badass
Yeah.
suit that he has.
Do you have a favorite?
Ooh. I love his Nomad costume. I love it. I love it, man. Because I think his
Yeah.
entrance in Infinity War really sold it. I was just
For
like,
sure.
oh, he means
back.
business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And also like without them having to even indulge the audience by explaining why he looks the way he looks, you get the story. The minute he comes out of those shadows, you're like, oh dang, Steve hasn't had a haircut in days. He's
Ever.
shaved.
He's been on the run.
He's been on the run. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's you get the full story just in those few seconds.
I love it.
And I love that. And one of my friends makes fun of me because like I love Captain America. Oh, it's Steve. But then like you throw Nomad at me and I'm like, yeah, Nomad.
Like that, he was my favorite. I have so many like favorite like scenes. We talked about this too, like where like one of my favorite scenes was of Cap, but that scene where he stops Thanos' arm just by off sheer strength of him.
It's incredible.
I was just like,
With
this is
both
an indicator
Yeah.
in itself, like to show like how strong Steve is,
Yeah.
and, like from like
The
you've seen him.
helicopter.
And like,
Yeah.
I love that shot a
So
lot. Yeah.
It's incredible. And so like really, I mean, I don't know that I have a favorite suit, but I love the suits in Winter Soldier and Infinity War / Endgame. Like those are probably my favorites in particular.
They're so good.
They're just so great. But I've enjoyed like the nuances of change that they had in Winter Soldier with the white and how they've kind of gone through these really subtle changes. And
You got to. You can't have the same
you
suit
can't have the same suit.
all these years.
And it's like we chat about and probably will say like for every character is that it's nice to see them in these films because they all evolve. Their looks evolve in different ways. And for Steve in particular, it happens to be like his hair gets a little crisper when he's like he's got shorter hair and he's more clean cut, but also the suit changes. It's vibrant. It's not vibrant. It's they played back to the old Cap wants you suit where the tights.
That was funny, yeah.
And then to the actual artillery like look, and so I love that. But so apparently like in the books when I was doing the history, the shield actually was that triangular shape that not the circular one, but the shield. His original shield, they actually got hit with like a trademark issue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so apparently there was another character that was popular at that time called the Shield, and he had a shield that looked like Captain America's shield.
Oh my God.
And so they
Shield
were like,
counter.
yeah. And so like they were like, okay, well we got to scrap it, and that's when they introduced the circular,
like
the one that we all know and love now.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's how that kind of came to be, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And then, and now it's been passed down. MCU or not, it's been passed down to so many people, and so many people have had their hand on
used it like the way. That's what because I do want to mention something about the shield. The shield itself, combat-wise, has evolved also because you see so many different ways of how the shield is used in combat.
Yeah.
and I love seeing it. Speaking of the shield, my favorite future that I wish they still used, because obviously with the shield, it's those two straps, right? 2 leather straps. I
know what you're gonna say.
loved the way the shield was in Age of Ultron.
With the magnetic.
The
The
you can just
gauntlet
pick
thing.
it up and
Yeah.
boom. Like I wish, and I feel like that would be easier to use, like for Sam Wilson.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to try to catch it in the straps kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just felt like that would have been easier. So
Yeah.
that's the aspect of the shield that I wish
The
they
tech.
kept.
Yeah, the tech.
Yeah.
And I wonder why they didn't, now that you mention it.
Well,
Because
also,
you're right.
thinking about it, when Cap passed the shield,
Yeah.
he came back from
That's also true.
he probably came back from the 70s.
But also, we
whatever.
wouldn't have gotten that incredible shot in Endgame when he's. Oh yeah, you like Steve Rogers too, huh?
Keeping that in just in case.
Oh, it's okay, Groot. But that incredible shot of Steve putting his forearm through the belts and he tightens it, and you can
Yes.
see that crazy gash he's got in his arm.
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't have gotten that
That's
if
true.
he just had
Because that's
the magnetic.
it's a very all around like moment.
They brought him back to square one again.
Yeah.
In a lot
but
of
in
ways.
a new suit. Like he has that shield,
Yeah.
but it's a new Cap suit.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any idea how many Captain Americas there have been?
Oh my god. Like in the comics?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, because of Falcon and Winter Soldier and Captain America movies, I think I off the top of my head, I think I know 4. So there's Steve Rogers, Sam Wilson,
Okay.
Isaiah Bradley,
Yep.
John Walker at some point takes the mantle,
You
right?
know one more.
Oh, Bucky
Barnes,
right?
yeah,
That's right.
no,
Yes. He does take up that mantle.
So
Oh my god, I'm so used to him just being a Winter Soldier.
I know, right? So there are a couple of other ones. I'm just gonna riff off this list right here. There's Isaiah Bradley, who we were introduced to recently in Falcon and Winter Soldier. There's also William Naslund, who is the Spirit of 76 in the comics, and he it's funny because he's got like a cape and like a white hat, and it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
But he was killed off, and then eventually replaced by a character named Geoffrey Mace, who was
Okay.
the Patriot.
Oh, okay.
And then following him was William Burnside, and then everybody's favorite, John Walker,
Love the
who
guy.
comes in and takes the helm with his sidekick, who is essentially the equivalent of Bucky, and who we also were introduced to in Falcon and Winter Soldier. What's his name again?
Battlestar.
Battlestar. But what's his
Oh,
civilian
Lamar.
name? Lamar. Who I was hoping would become Battlestar. That's another conversation entirely, but I guess he's not going to have
Yeah,
that
well,
chance.
yeah.
And then, of course, Sam Wilson, who is Falcon and then eventually becomes Captain America, who had his own title, and they refer to him as Cap.
Nice.
He was introduced in all new Captain America. They had this wave of comics where they were like soft rebooting characters, and so he got the all new treatment of his own
Nice.
title, and that's when they debuted the suit that we've seen in the MCU.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
it's relatively new. I have that downstairs in my my collection. And so and then Bucky, because on the heels of Civil War I, a brainwashed Sharon Carter actually assassinates Captain America.
Wow.
Yeah, and that turns into a whole thing. There's a whole storyline that revolves around, and part of it entails Bucky taking on the Shield. And so he becomes
that's
Captain
crazy.
America. And it's funny though, because he looks just like Steve in the suit, but his ears are covered. So the thing is, the big thing is how you can tell them apart is that his ears are covered. And so, but he also has a mouth on him because he's Bucky Barnes.
Okay,
and so
yeah.
he's telling the Avengers, like, shut up, let's keep moving. He does not talk like Steve Rogers,
Yeah.
but he looks like him. And so Bucky was Captain America. And so that's kind of where that dialogue of like, are we going to see Bucky as Captain America? And it never happens in the show for obvious reasons, because that's not the same Barnes. That's a different Barnes.
Yeah.
And he had a different, journey. Well, I mean, it's very similar, but he had a different journey in that Sam's part in the MCU is just so much more guided that way, which rightfully so. I'm not mad at it at all. I love
Oh, we're
Sam's
segueing
Cap.
into Falcon and Winter Soldier now.
I guess
Okay,
so,
yes.
yeah.
Perfect segue.
So, it's as neat of an idea as it would have been to see Bucky in the suit.
Take up the helm.
Take up the helm.
Yeah.
That
I think a lot of people
driving.
did want to see it too.
Yeah, but with John Walker in the mix, it's kind of like, well, he was Captain America for 5 seconds, and then you're gonna throw Bucky Barnes into it before getting to Sam Wilson in 6 episodes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm glad they didn't go there.
Which goes back to the character of Captain America. Not the perfect soldier, but a good man.
A good man, yeah.
And Sam Wilson is a good man, and I think that from the final episode, it was literally 2.5 minute speech.
Damn.
It was captivating, and I was just like, this is why he is taking on this helm.
Yeah.
That character growth was great to see. Although it was 6 episodes, they told the story that they wanted to tell. Like, he went from, I don't know if I want to be Captain America because I'm not Steve Rogers. I can't. No one can ever.
Yeah.
Then at the end of the episode, or at the end of in the finale, he's like, I don't need to be Steve Rogers.
Exactly.
I just need to be Captain America.
Exactly.
And I'm just like, it's great. And the suit.
The embodiment of Captain America.
Yeah, the Wakandan suit, it's literally comic book. I was seeing that on Twitter. It's literally a comic book accurate suit.
Yeah.
And then I saw like a side-by-side of all the suits we've seen in the past year and a half.
Yeah.
And wow, they've done Marvel has done a lot of very comic book accurate suits, and going back to like Wanda, Scarlet Witch suit.
That's all I wanted. Speaking of Wanda, like all I wanted was to see her in the red and pink. Like I was like, come on, just give me one.
And the headpiece, right?
Yeah.
I think the headpiece is very iconic.
Then, like I'm sure other people are like, oh, well, it was the Halloween cut. So it's like, well, no, yeah, I get it.
You can't do that in modern times.
Yeah.
You can't wear that in modern times.
But to have that Easter egg,
great.
oh my god,
Love
that's so great. And I feel like that's almost like a throwback to how many people were offended by the X-Men suits and how they were like all black. Like and then they even made a joke in one of the Logan movies or one of the X-Men movies, and he says, "What did you expect? Yellow spandex?" And it's like, actually, we did. We wanted the yellow spandex, and so I think that they've embraced, which is another thing that's actually it's absolutely amazing when it comes to the MCU, is that you see them trying to adopt the suits, and people were like, oh, where's Wanda's crown? Why isn't she wearing this? Why isn't she wearing that? But it's like, again, it's the maturity. They're maturing the characters over time.
They're gonna get there.
They're gonna get there. Yeah. And she's like, you compare her to the end of was it Civil War? Yeah, the end of Civil War, where she had that like hot 3-second cameo, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is that suit? And you don't get to see it again. But then, she goes through the motions, and now at the end of WandaVision, she's got this beautiful garb that's kind of reminiscent of her father, but we'll talk about that later.
And same with, going back to Sam Wilson and like his like evolution of the suits. Like he just had the backpack in Winter Soldier.
In Winter Soldier,
He improved it in Civil War, I believe. He had like a whole suit with Red Wing.
And Ant-Man.
And yes,
because he had that cameo in there, and he was a little. I think it was pretty similar, but he did look like he had more gear on. But yeah, and even the way that the tech flows with the wings, they've even upgraded that, and now they're just like, psh, like what do you even say?
I just love that Wakanda. I just love that Wakanda as being like, damn, like we need an upgraded suit. Who do we go to?
Yeah,
Wakanda.
Like, yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of like the Tony Stark effect, like Spidey, like what did you really expect him to live on fabrics and going to Joann's every 5 days?
Exactly. Come on.
No, you gotta upgrade the stuff. And so it's funny that you mentioned Wakanda, because originally in the books, before the origin of the Shield was established, it was kind of understood that like by the time that the 60s rolled around, or later than that, really, and adamantium came into the picture, that Cap was throwing around an adamantium shield. Oh. But, of course, science came in, and they're like, well, the density of adamantium is far too heavy for him to throw out that acceleration.
Sure.
and so they kind of went back, I think, in 2007 or so. They went back and they retold the origin, so to speak, in that it was indeed Wakandan vibranium. Oh. And so a more light and pliable metal, but just as strong as adamantium.
Most versatile metal on Earth.
Because and I'm not to segue too much, but not to tangent too much, but like vibranium in general, Wakanda isn't the only place you can get vibranium. You
Where
can
else
also
can you
get it.
I don't know this actually. I don't know this.
You can get it from the Savage Land, if that means anything to you.
I don't think no.
You made a Sauron joke the other week.
Oh,
Sauron
God.
comes from the Savage Land. And so it's essentially a place where enhanced, like mutants, like the X-Men, they tend to lose their powers when they go to that land because it's a remote island, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
But you can forage vibranium from Wakanda and Savage Land.
Interesting.
And so I wonder if later on down in the MCU line, are they going to kind of pivot between Wakanda and Savage Land and kind of introduce that whole other suite of characters, because there's a whole bunch of them over there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
wow.
it's kind of
neat. Yeah. There's so much story to tell.
There's so much. But speaking of the Shield, I got a pop quiz for you.
Oh, let's go.
Okay. So this one's a little nerdy. Which president gave Cap the shield in the comics?
Oh, wow.
This is going to be a weird one for you. But maybe. You got to think again. Think of the timeline.
Okay.
I mean, if you know your presidents, this is a shield.
I hope I do.
If not...
I hope I do.
Was it Roosevelt?
Okay.
Truman?
Okay.
Eisenhower?
Okay.
Or Kennedy?
Interesting.
And I just have to say, they do mention John F. Kennedy quite a bit in the original comics because of the timeline.
Interesting.
I believe they even say, and I'm going to repeat this for the Winter Soldier episode that eventually happens, I believe Bucky was one of the shooters.
Yes, I remember that. Wow, yeah.
So poor Kennedy. Kennedy was all over the books, but yeah.
Oh my God.
So Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, or Kennedy?
Truman doesn't seem like a guy that would give a shield to
Captain America.
Cap. Mm-hmm. Eisenhower. I really want to say Kennedy now, just cause like he seems like a super, just like, hey Cap, like we made this for you. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go Kennedy. On this one.
Kennedy. Okay. Incorrect. It was President Roosevelt. And they established this canon. Teddy! They established this in canon in 1981. And so he just presents him with the shield. Oh, it's Captain America. Blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so there you go.
Wow.
Nerdy. Nice and nerdy.
What a timeline.
Speaking of timelines, thank you for the segue. Do you know who else has been a part of the Captain America family in other universes?
In other universes?
Yeah. I think you know one of these.
Wait, so Captain America family, as in like
who else has been Captain America? Not of the normal timeline, but of another world.
In the comics?
Yeah. Do you have any idea?
Oh my God.
And which is funny because I do believe we see one of these instances in the upcoming What If series that's coming in August.
I think I know. Wait,
come on.
Oh my God, what's her name? Peggy Carter?
Peggy Carter.
Captain Britain.
Captain Britain. I mean, which is kind of funny because there was a Captain Britain, but that's another story entirely.
Yeah.
But yeah, in other verses, Peggy, she was...
she's the one who took the serum.
It was part of this time-traveling jaunt, and there's a series called Exiles, which features one of my favorite X-Men characters, Blink, who is portrayed by Jamie Chung.
Yeah.
What's her name? I forgot her name, but in Days of Future Past.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I love that character. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, she's traveling and she arrives in one particular universe where Peggy Carter is actually the equivalent of Captain America, which is kind of what they're pulling the What If episode from. So that's one. Another one is Danielle Cage. Do you know who Danielle Cage is?
Danielle Cage?
Danielle Cage.
I do not.
Is actually Jessica Jones and Luke Cage's daughter.
Oh.
She was named after Iron Fist, Danny Rand.
Whoa.
So her name is Danny Cage with an I. And so she is Captain America in another universe. And then in, of course, my favorite universe, Earth 65, where Spider-Gwen is from, Samantha Wilson is actually Captain America there.
Is that?
And she's an iconic black woman who is like, she is the Captain America. That's it. And she's awesome. I almost wish that she had her own series, to be honest. It was so good. And then Captain America, I almost said Spider-Man. Captain America 2099, who is also a female, Roberta Mendez. And so they're all women, which is interesting.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Yeah, oh my God, that's amazing.
Women, and 3 are women of color, which is like...
That's awesome.
That's freaking great, right?
I would love to see that on screen.
Yeah, I know. It's great. It's good stuff. Yeah. So those are all the Captain Americas.
Oh wow!
And that's
there's a lot more than I had anticipated. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
And that's just the scraping the surface, you know. Like each one of those characters, especially Dani, is kind of like her features are kind of mixed matched. I think there was a few. I keep saying episodes. There's a few issues of Jessica Jones where. She keeps having this recurring dream that she sees her daughter grown up and she's Captain America, and she's like, what is this? Yeah. And you know, Samantha Wilson in the Spider-Gwen book, she's a recurring character too, but she's not too often. There's even the Bucky Barnes, not Bucky Barnes, but her sidekick equivalent is also in the books, maybe 3 or 4 issues off and on. So those two I know very well. Peggy, you know, of course Peggy's Peggy, so it's like whatever. Yeah. But, not whatever, but we all know Peggy. Yep. And so Roberta is the one I don't really know too much about, but I hear that her story is, it's not so unsimilar from Steve's, that she was experimented on, but in her case it was she was not willing. They made her do it.
They made her do it.
Yeah, and so, but you know, that's 2099. 2099 is full of strange versions of the characters, and you know. Yeah, so I guess, do you want to roll into love interests? You ready for the Cap love?
Let's hear it out, because I only know 1 or 2 probably that I've seen on screen.
Who are?
I've seen Peggy Carter, obviously. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was Civil War when he had that little thing with Sharon, I guess.
How do you feel about the Sharon thing?
Like her arc,
she and Steve.
Oh, she and Steve. I mean, yeah. People said it on like Twitter. It's like, dang, like you just kind of kiss like your girl's niece. Yeah. Which is funny. Yeah. There was like a joke on Twitter where Cap goes back and like he kisses Peggy, Sharon. But then he's like, oh man, your niece kisses better, and it's like, wait, what? What did you say?
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Yeah,
that's funny.
He was just so in love with her though. But yeah, so before we get to the main headers, there's in the books he dated this woman that went. Her superhero name was Golden Girl.
Nice.
But her real name was Betsy Ross.
Okay.
Does that? Yeah, the look on your face.
Betsy Ross? Is that like Ross. The daughter of Thunderbolt Ross?
I believe she's the great aunt or great grandmother of Betty Ross.
Okay.
Who is the daughter of Thaddeus Ross.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
And, you know, for those who don't know, Betty Ross is basically Bruce Banner's, you know, on and off again romantic love interest. And so Cap, like, he's gone through his share of women over time.
What a guy.
And of course there was Black Widow.
Yes. I was going to say that. I was going to say that after sharing. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure they've had a thing.
And that's a little strange for a few reasons, but maybe we'll go into this for Black Widow's story. But Cap, and I think I said it before, Black Widow is much older than she is in the MCU, or at least appears to be in the MCU, and she's pretty much as old as Steve in many regards.
Oh, okay.
And so they met when she was like 12 years old.
Oh my God.
In a very strange circumstance that I'm not going to go into right now, but so for them to then later develop sort of like a romantic relationship it's weird. Interesting.
Interesting for sure.
And he had a minute or two with your girl, Wanda Maximoff.
What?
Yeah. And the messed up part is that it was a one-night stand, and he kind of like fell in love with her because that's what Steve Rogers does. And she pulled I don't remember what happened. So she kind of ghosted him, and he was still left pining for her.
Wow, I've been there.
Yeah, both. And so, of course, that leaves Margaret, Peggy Carter, and then Sharon. But the funny thing is, you mentioned Sharon and Aunt Peggy. Believe it or not, in the comic books, they were originally sisters.
No.
Yeah, so...
Oh, my God.
I take back everything I said about Steve Rogers that was pure and kind.
This man
Yeah, I know,
was
he kind of bounced around a bit. Yeah, it made it even worse, to be honest. But they went back and retconned that, made her the aunt and the niece. They had the aunt and niece.
You need to separate that, yeah.
It's a little, yeah.
Good on them. Good on them.
And you know, not to diminish Peggy at all, but her presence in the MCU is like infinitely more important and more present than she was in the comic books.
Yeah.
It's really about Sharon Carter in the comic books. So yeah.
Yeah, Peggy plays a huge role in the MCU.
Goodness.
Like, she is a tent pole.
Yeah.
I love it. And she's great. I love Haley Atwell. She plays
oh my God.
amazing.
An incredible actress. I love her.
She's great.
And yeah, she's just wonderful. So that leads me to my next pop quiz.
Oh my God.
This is the last one.
Ooh.
It's the last one. And it's true or false. And
Sweet.
it's a little fun.
Okay.
Okay, let me just preface this with, so my mother, she's not quite like my dad. She's not all up on the movies, but she will go with him to watch them.
Yeah.
Her two favorite films are Deadpool and Winter Soldier. I don't know why.
Two solid choices.
Two solid choices. And so my pop quiz question here for you now, you remember Blind Al?
Yes.
Blind Al is the blind lady from the Deadpool movie. She's funny as heck. I can't remember the actress. I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But true or false? Blind Al from Deadpool hooked up with Cap at one point during World War II. True or false?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Just the thought of that is like scarring me right now.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, remember Blind Al is old?
I want this to be false.
You think it's false? Is that your final
yes,
answer?
Yes.
It is in fact very true.
Oh my God.
Captain America hooked up with Blind Al during
what
World
the
War
hell?
II.
Kind of Cap is
You
in the
just have to
comics,
remember.
man.
Yeah, no, like he's doing more than just a single kiss.
Wow.
Yeah, no.
Oh my God.
So there's no actual. He's about to retch on me. He's about to retch. So there's no like actual documentation of what happened.
You don't need documentation.
But there is an existing panel where she's bonding with, I think it's Wade, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I hooked up with Captain America during World War II," and he's like, "What?"
I would love to see Ryan Reynolds pop up in the movie and be like, "Steve, is that?"
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yes, I do. Oh my gosh, it was so good.
I can't wait for the MCU Deadpool movie.
Oh, I'm ready. It probably won't be for 2 years, but I'm ready.
I just can't wait to see what Feige in the studio allows.
It's gonna be brutal. That's for sure. So that brings us to our next topic. Mm-hmm. The almost was list of candidates who almost portrayed, or at least in the very least, auditioned for the role of Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
So
I know of one.
Yeah.
I know of one
Who's the
for
one?
sure. It was John Krasinski.
Okay. Yeah.
I know that, like, he fitted for the suit. I remember that interview he had on one of the talk shows.
Did he fit for the suit? I don't know. I didn't
said
get that far.
I think he said he fitted for the suit. And then he saw Chris Hemsworth walk by, and then he was just like, "Yeah, no, I'm not. No, I don't think this is."
Oh
no.
my God. Yeah. The
So I
Marvel
I just know John Krasinski. Is there anyone else that auditioned for Captain America? Oh,
it's quite a list I have for you, my friend.
Do I remember any people?
I feel like you do, but you'll remember after I say
Okay,
it.
go for it. List them off.
All right. This one's a fun one.
Okay.
Kellen Lutz. Do you know Kellen Lutz?
If I see his face, I probably, because that name sounds familiar.
Kellen Lutz was essentially And this one's for my Twihards out there. He's from Twilight.
Oh.
He was the big guy vampire.
Okay.
Ryan Phillippe.
I have to see his face, but I do know that name.
Daddy for Life. He was the original Mr. Witherspoon.
Okay.
Cruel Intentions.
Oh my God. It's been a while. I just need to see his face.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
I'm assuming these are all like just good looking throbs. Just.
Dane Cook is my next one. Do you want to take that?
Oh,
statement?
I've heard this. Yes.
Dane Cook auditioned for him.
He was on
the Marvel workout diet thing, and
yeah. I don't know. I don't see him.
This next one, you're gonna be like, what? 2, not just 1, but 2 of the Jonas Brothers auditioned for Captain America.
I want to guess.
Okay, you want to guess? Give
I
me a
want to
guess.
guess it was Joe and Nick.
Nah.
Kevin
And Joe. Kevin.
I mean, no offense to Kevin. I'm just saying, you think.
I feel it. No, but me too. I was kind of like, Nick was like, I'm good.
Wow.
Or he just never got it. Maybe because he was just too young. But
and this was 2010.
Yeah, you're thinking 2009,
10. Yeah.
So this is the it boy at work again.
This is like peak Jonas Brothers.
Yeah. peak adult Jonas Brothers.
Yeah.
And so you could tell the casting team were trying to get people who were like super relevant at that time.
Yeah.
Or at least
like try them out.
Yeah.
Get them in the suit. Say the lines. Screen test it a little bit.
Exactly. The next one actually is on my short list for Hawkeye. Jensen Ackles of Supernatural fame.
Okay.
Incredible. Almost too handsome.
Too.
He's a good-looking dude.
Nice.
Like a little too good-looking,
Okay.
maybe for Cap. The thing about Chris Evans is that he's kind of got this doe-eyed, soft boy look to him, which makes him stand out amongst the rest. Especially the next one, who is Alexander Skarsgård.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
who
know
was
that guy.
Tarzan and True Blood and all that stuff. Another candidate was Garrett Hedlund from Tron, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, him. He's kind of more of like a Cyclops to me, but that's also the other guy.
I see that.
John Krasinski, like you said.
Uh-huh.
The not Gambit, Channing Tatum was apparently up for it as well.
He's too pretty. Too chiseled.
I just
don't see it.
No,
I don't think he has that.
And then of course our last 2 candidates, Sebastian Stan.
Oh,
so
yeah.
There was the Thor. It was a Thor Loki situation where he came in to audition for one role, which was Cap. Didn't get it, and they were like, "Hey, we have a role for you, actually, if you're interested." And he was like, "Cool." And he says, I think in an interview, that he's like, in hindsight, best decision, because he prefers what happens to Bucky and that storyline that he's got to develop.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, over Cap. I mean, I'm sure that would have been cool too, but he got a good deal, if you ask me.
I mean, he got a series out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then last but not least, Chris Pratt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, so Chris Pratt?
Chris Pratt didn't get it either, yeah. And I think...
look at him now. He's a Star-Lord.
4 years later, he got Guardians of the Galaxy,
That's crazy.
I feel like they just kind of put him back in the pile, and they were like, all right, well, next time. And I also wanted to kind of, this is kind of random, but I wanted to give a shout out to Chris Brewster, who was essentially Cap's stunt double in pretty much all of the films.
Yeah.
He was also, maybe you don't know this, but he was also Daredevil in the Netflix series. And so
oh my God, I have seen that on Twitter somewhere.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, I used to talk to him all the time on Twitter. Somebody stole his account, so a big FU to that person who hacked him and took his account away. But Chris, we still love you, Chris Brewster.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, is there anybody in particular that you would or could see as Cap?
Like as of right now.
If not Chris Evans.
If not Chris Evans.
No.
Oh my gosh.
I already know. I can't. It's another one of those where I'm just like, I don't.
It's hard because Chris Evans really did it. Like he had the voice and he had the endearing traits of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you may think that's like easy to convey, but it's really not, because when you listen to like Chris Evans' speeches and how he kind of like consoles or he's firm, like it's very like oh, he means business, but it's also like he's my friend.
The delivery and the deliberation and the intention that he was able to kind of pull together.
His posture about it, yeah.
And it's like we said at the top of the show, you know, like this guy was Johnny Storm like a couple of years before that. And so to see somebody be, dare I say that, versatile and kind of come out of left field.
They just come into that.
And then just knock it out of the park. You're like, how?
It's hard.
And so, so the next suspecting person, like, who knows? We have no idea. Like, it could be somebody that we're just like, what? But they're just as good.
There can never, ever be another Steve Rogers, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh my God, we're copping out of this question. We always do this every time. But it's like, there's some characters where you're like, it's hard.
It's tough.
Chris Evans really just knocked it out of the park.
No, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with how his story ended.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. I know some people don't agree. They think it's a little weird, like that he gave up his mantle and all that. But you know what? For that Cap, it worked.
He wanted a life.
Yeah.
And he needed to get it.
It's just like he said.
He had the option to. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take it. He doesn't care if he's living back in the 40s.
But it was with Peggy.
With Peggy.
So, which, by the way, that song playing at the end of Endgame is the same song that plays in Winter Soldier, and it didn't dawn on me until I rewatched it yesterday.
I am in love with that song so much.
Gorgeous.
I have just played it.
Love it.
I just played it because that saxer. And then I haven't gone to Disneyland in a while, but I remember seeing videos of that they played that song after Endgame came out. Yeah. It was part of their World of Color show, I think, and they played that song for the Avengers part of the show, and I was just like, oh my God, like how are you gonna play this song? Like, I can't deal with this right now.
I think that's why I didn't watch first Avenger. I was like, I can't. It gets me very emotional just because I love that whole nostalgia and the first loveness of it.
It was great.
And Peggy is just so great. So yeah, I mean that's essentially the show. But of course, before the final stuff, I have my strange item. The collector and her collection. And so it's not so much of a strange item than it is a very cool one. And I'm going to pull it out of the box here. I usually, you know what? I don't open stuff.
Oh my God,
I'm
guys.
one of those people, and I opened this because I wanted to show you.
Oh, this is like an exclusive.
It's an exclusive.
It's literally in the bag.
It's in the bag. I'm pulling it out, and I just want to hear Geoffrey's reaction when I show him what these are.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what they might be?
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Are they
Coulson's
cards? I knew it. I saw the blood stain on the back, and I was like, no, these are not Coulson's cards.
So these are replicas of Coulson's cards.
Oh my God, it's like I'm in the movie.
That he collected from Avengers. And
oh my God.
And so there's a bloody set and a regular set.
Huge fan.
Yeah, I love them so much. So yeah, they're cool, nah?
Sir, and then just Maria Hill. Sir, those cards were in Coulson's locker.
Yes.
Yep, well, they just needed a little push.
Yeah. I knew I could rely on you. Yeah, so that's that.
Oh, this is literally like the card that Nick throws on the table.
Yep.
Oh my God.
That splatter of cards and Coulson.
Oh my God, this is insane.
Them. Yeah, they're good. They're good stuff.
Was this the shield that was a?
Yeah, that's the shield.
That was like copyrighted. Yeah.
So it survived a few years, but it inevitably came down to the disc, which is funny because he's carrying it in this one too. So that's Captain America.
God.
I mean,
wow, there is a lot that I did not know about Cap, like in the comics that I thought.
It's a Titan. Yeah.
I mean, even like with the show, with the Falcon Winter Soldier, like it introduced like 2-3 versions of Captain America.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize there was so much more.
Yeah. There's tons and tons, and as always, this is just the surface. We didn't go tremendously deep and as far as we could have, really. But I think it's a good primer for some new folks.
And I am very excited for the Captain America 4 movie.
Yeah.
Which is.
Did we get a year for that? No.
I don't think so. It was just announced after the season finale. They just announced, because Malcolm Spellman is going to come back. To write it.
Incredible.
So I'm very excited for that.
It's gonna be
Who
crazy.
knows
Yeah.
how the story can
I couldn't
go
even
forward.
tell you
Yeah.
who I think the villains are. Like I have
I don't. Yeah.
no idea. Because by the time that rolls around, we don't know
There's
who
gonna
else
be
is going to
so
be
many
introduced.
things. Yeah.
It's going to be nutso. It's going to be nutso.
It's great. So
For, since Cap, I think we agreed to do this. We agreed on this before recording, but since Cap won the popular vote amongst listeners, we're going to go ahead and for episode 4, introduce a female into the mix and cover Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch.
Yes, I'm so excited.
For episode 4. So that'll be out in a couple of weeks, and we have a special guest that may be joining us that I'm very excited to have on. He's a great friend of mine who's also a Wanda fan. I'm not going to announce names yet, just in case.
Yep.
But
don't do that.
So I'm hoping to announce our special guest very soon. Hopefully by the time that everyone gets to listen to this episode. Any closing statements before we roll it out?
Just want to say thank you guys for listening to this episode. I had a really good time learning about Cap because I think he is my second favorite character in the MCU.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm just a huge Chris Evans fan, and I love Cap's story and his art in general. I had a lot of fun listening to this, and once again, thank you guys for just listening and tuning in.
Yep.
Like Dai said, we will be talking about Wanda, a.k.a. the Scarlet Witch, in our next episode. And if you haven't, subscribe to our Patreon. Follow us on all our socials, STRKCNTRST.
Good job.
It's on Instagram. It's on Twitter.
Yep.
Give us a follow. Leave a comment on who would you like to hear or what you would like to hear us discuss. It doesn't have to be a character. It could be a movie.
Yeah.
It could be anything. Literally anything part of the MCU.
Dogs of Marvel.
I can go all days on Lucky.
I could talk about Lucky.
I just want to talk about Lucky, to be honest.
Let's go.
Yeah. So whatever you guys want to hear, just leave a comment, let us know, and we'll
catch
see
you
if
next time.
Yeah, catch you next time.
Thank
you guys. Bye.
Later.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.